You got your screen share? Take it away, Martin.
Oops. Hi. My talk is a little bit different from yours. It's more culture and not so scientific. And I want to give you some facts before. Bremen has the same latitude as Edmonton in Canada, so we are really far north in Germany. And that's why Vireyas have to be cultivated in greenhouses in Germany, because they are not frost tolerant and we need heated greenhouses with additional light. Bremen is located 11 meters over sea level, and the Foundation Bremer Rhododendron Park is the owner of the Botanical Garden and the Rhododendron Park Bremen. And the Rhododendron Park Bremen has the world's largest collection of rhododendrons. We have nearly 650 species and more than 3,500 cultivars. And the garden is 114 acres big. And we have the Botanica complex within the rhododendron garden. And we are two different companies. So the foundation of the Bremen Rhododendron Park and the Botanica are two different companies. And Botanica has the public greenhouses with the Japanese garden, Borneo, New Guinea greenhouse, and Himalayan greenhouse. And these greenhouses show the collections of non-winter hardy rhododendrons here in Germany. And the Botanica is limited GmbH and not part of the foundation. So we start with the Borneo New Guinea greenhouse of Botanica. And that's how it looks like when the fog system is running. The Borneo New Guinea greenhouse is 625 square meters, and the walls are 12 meters high, and the rooftop is 17 meters high. And you see a rock there, some here. This is a concrete rock, and we wanted to show the little Mount Kinabalu, most favorite mountain on Borneo, where 65 or some more species are coming from. And the Botanica was built in 2003 because the old greenhouses were no longer suitable for the rhododendron collection because of poor drainage, high salts in the ground, and too low, not high enough. And then the company decided to build a new one, also with the city of Bremen, and then they decided to make a greenhouse where rhododendrons are planted in the natural landscape with their companion plants. And we have, oops, was my mistake, sorry. So next one. So here you see a panorama view, how it looks like. So with trees, tree ferns, and it looks more natural as planted in 2003. And we have several ground beds where Vireyas are planted in, trees, little shrubs, grasses, mosses, and here you see a tree, a Terminalia calamansi, tree with 20-year-old epiphytes growing in it, old tree fern trunks, and they all Vireyas are planted in the ground. And we decided in the first days of 2003 to split the greenhouse into the half. Over there is Borneo and the rest is New Guinea, and between is the Philippines, Sulawesi, the rest of Indonesia. But during the years we decided and we saw that the cultural needs of these plants are totally different. You get more cooler conditions over here as in the mountain during the winter months because the warm air is going this way and here's the cold air coming from the Himalayan greenhouse. And then we decided in 2015 to put the cold loving species over here and the warm loving species over in the mountain, and that works very good. Lowland and highland species, we decided to put the lowland species from sea level up to 2000 meters in the natural habitat, and the highland species from 2500 meter up to 4000 meter in the natural habitat. And you see here the foil over there is the frontier up to the Himalayan greenhouse, so that not the cold air from the Himalayan during the winter months is coming over to the Borneo greenhouse. The lowest temperature in winter is about 15 degrees, and during the summer months we have 30 up to 40 degrees. And if you look here over here in the top, you see the lamps. We have over 60 of these lamps, and we can put additional light during the winter months in this greenhouse. And we are measuring the light intensity during the day, especially from November to the end of February, where our winters are very dark and with less sun, always mostly cloudy days. And then we put additional light during night and in the morning from 6 to 8 in it, so that the tropical plants get the amount of light they really need. So here you have a different image, and you see here these are 12 meters, and over there there's 17 meters. The tree ferns are coming from the old greenhouses, which were staying there from the mid 60s up to 2003, and all the trees and companion plants came from Malaysian nurseries, were transported by ship to the Netherlands, put in quarantine for 3 months, and then they were planted in the greenhouses. And that's how it looks like, our little mountain, the Mount Kinabalu, with tree ferns, vaccinium species, orchids, mosses. And the main idea of this natural looking greenhouse was to bring also the ethnological stuff in it. And we got some wooden sculptures from some folks who visited Southeast Asia, and we got old hampatongs, so protection figures of villages, for so that the village is protected by these ghosts and nothing can happen to the village. And you always see some epiphytes over here. I'm sorry for the bad quality, because it's not so easy to take pictures of the epiphytes growing in the trees. And that's how the Mount Kinabalu looks like, with ferns, mosses. And here you have Cycirium jambos with rhododendrons, echinanthus, nepenthes growing in, or over here staghorn ferns. And that's how it looks like from the mountain. So here's our biggest epiphyte over here. This is Rhododendron lurantiflorum. This was a cutting planted 20 years ago. And the typical thing of lurantiflorum is it has a very bad root system. And this was the first growth, then it falls to the side, and then the new growth came. And all lurantiflorum hybrids have poor root system. It grows in the pocket of a staghorn fern. So here you have a little image of a tree fern trunk where Rhododendron hematodes, like here, and Rhododendron malayanum is growing over here, and Rhododendron caliginus is also growing there with Xylogene species, and here you see a fern. If you put an epiphyte on a tree fern or on a tree, it takes up to 5 years when the rhododendron is really growing and is established, because the root system is very poor and you need extra moss where the roots can grow in for aeration, which holds the moisture, and it takes long time, and it is not always guaranteed that the new or rare epiphyte is really growing on this trunk or on the tree. So here you have the stem again. Over here you have another rhododendron. Rhododendron phallacinum is also growing here. Or here this tree fern with Scindapsus species, Piper species, Dendrobium species. Here you have Rhododendron suaveolens growing inside. And yeah, it looks better if you see it in nature. Here you have ficus growing with Rhododendron taxifolium, Nepenthes, Rhododendron radians, and over here you have a staghorn pocket, staghorn orchids, and Medinella species, or Medinella comingi, and over here you have rhododendron hybrid with Aurigeranum crossed with Intranevatum, which looks more like Intranevatum. And there's also over here a big Rhododendron jasminiflorum growing inside. So that was the Botanica greenhouse, and now we're coming to our propagation center where we produce all the plants for the Botanica or for the rhododendron garden. So, Alexaus, Alexaus, I'm sorry. This is my propagation center. It's 1.50 meter wide and 3 meter long. And I use it for cuttings, seeds, graftings, and yeah, using it nearly 12 months a year. Because the good thing with Vireyas is that you can make cuttings through every month of the year because they are always growing, flowering, producing new growth. So you always have the chance to make new cuttings. So starting with the sowings, we always use clay pots because they hold the moisture, have a good aeration, and then we use the substrate which we use for all rhododendrons, and then we sifted it, and that it's more print structure. It's much easier for the seedlings to root inside. Then we put peat moss on it, water it, and then we sow the seeds. And this is how it looks like after 3 or 4 months after sowings. And this is 1 to 2 centimeters. And if you fertilize well, you get this size within 6 months. But depends on the species or hybrid. Hybrids are more bigger. So we're also doing some cuttings. This is Rhododendron Marius over here. We always put several cuttings in one clay pot, reducing the leaves to the half, label them with the name when we made the cutting. And that's how it looks like when the cuttings are transplanted after 3 to 4 months after making the cuttings. That's how it looks like. And then the cuttings. So these are cuttings from August 24, sorry. And you will see a picture how tall they are now. So if you make cuttings, not every cutting makes the same amount of roots. So you always need more than 1 or 2 or 3 cuttings. I always make up to 10 cuttings, and then you get the amount you really need. So you have Aurigeranum cuttings over here, Rhododendron lochi hybrid over here, or Macrogorgia over here. So totally different, but these will throw away, and I only use the good ones with the good root system. These are more vigor as this one. So that's how it looks like when plants are potted, and we use several fertilizers. We need Osmocote Exact 3 to 4 months working with 15 and 9P and 11K. So it works 3 to 4 months, giving these nutrients slowly within these months to the plant. We only use it for plants where we have plenty of cuttings or seedlings of it, because if the container is getting dry, the fertilizer is not working. The fertilizer is only working when the substrate is moderate moist, and the plant get more stressed when the plant is getting dry, moist, wet, and then the fertilizer is not working, the fertilizer is working again. And then we decided to take a new one, which is a German fertilizer. It calls Growtect. It's rhododendron fertilizer with mycorrhiza, and it's very low acting. It only has 7, 2, and 10. And the good thing is with the mycorrhiza, the mycorrhiza is going to the new growing root, and if it's on the new growing root, the fungus like Phytophthora or Fusarium can't go to the white root, so the mycorrhiza blocked it to the bad fungus, and you get more stronger, more vigor plants with this fertilizer. It's a very good one, and we use it also for every Himalayan species, deciduous azaleas, lepidodes, big leaves, and it's a very, very good fertilizer, and you get very vigor and healthy plants. So if the cuttings are rooted, and then we make the first transplanting, we take these boxes, and before we plant the cuttings, we infected them with a fertilizer with the mycorrhiza, and you see it lying over there, and put the cuttings in it, and they will stay there for 1 or maybe 2 years in it, and they are only transplanted when the roots are coming out of the box. And you see the white stuff coming out of the container. That's it. When that shows you the mycorrhiza is growing, and it's growing only 4 weeks, and then you don't see it, and then it's only active within the substrate. So you see the roots are growing outside, and that's this size of the plants, and then they show you now it's time for transplanting. The most important thing with Vireyas is never overpot and never start too early with transplanting. Just start transplanting or repotting when the roots are getting out of the container or out of the box, or if the container is completely filled with the roots, because the terminal growth is always faster as the root grow. Most of the plants are epiphytes, and they don't need a root system like a big leaf or rhododendron, and that makes a problem with overpotting. It's always better to give a smaller pot as a bigger pot. So I've seen plants in Hawaii, and you have a 4-inch container with a 2-meter high plant in it, and it works. So this is a view into our propagation center. This is a room for the warm-loving species. And you see ventilation system and all the lamps hanging over here. And we also can do it the same in the Botanica greenhouse, put the extra light for the winter months from November to December. Our darkest day is mostly December 21st, and daylight starts at 8:30 in the morning, and it's getting dark at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. And if you have a very cloudy, dark day without sunshine, you need the additional light. And if you don't have the additional light, plants get stressed, get red leaves, get fungus, get insect disease and everything. So we have the ground beds and tables, moving tables for the younger plants, because if you put the big plant here on the table below the light, that doesn't work. And we have different containers, and these are plants which are nearly 10 years old, and these are plants which are 2 to 4 years old. Every one is labeled with its own label, with a name, inventory number, so that we can see where we got this plant from, when it arrived in the collection. So these are the youngest ones. These are cuttings which are 2 years old, and all they were planted in January in this substrate and in this container. We use water lily or water plant containers because you have a good aeration around the substrate. The water which is too much is running through the container, and the plant is no longer staying in the water, and the perfect drainage for the plants. So if the plant is young enough, I always try to pinch and prune them, but not every Virea likes pinching and pruning, so I only do it to up to 3 years, and then I let the plants grow, which is much easier. So these are the containers we use. We always start with a small one, and then we are getting bigger through the years. So these containers only used for the smallest ones, which are very low growing, not so fast growing, but this one is a 9 centimeter container we normally use for 2 to 3 year old cuttings. So then they will stay there for 3, 4, 5 years, and then they are moved into the next size, staying for 5 to 10 years on this side, moving to the next size. So if it's over here, the plant is about 20, 25 years old. So you see, compare the sizes, it's always the next size. So never over potting. It's not possible. And you see all the holes, good aeration, the water can run through, and it's not staying in the substrate. So some examples. This is a rhododendron which is 4 years old, still staying over there, and no roots to see there. So there's no need to repot this one. And you see the substrate is not completely filled with the roots, so no need to repot it. So Vaccinoides, we lost it during hot summer days. So this is very sensitive to heat, needs always cool, moderate moisture, never too hot, and still growing in the littlest container we have, and start rooting out of it. And I always kill them. I only can hold them for 3 to 4 years, and all the plants are dying. So Rhododendron quadrasianum var rosmarinifolium looks like a rosemary, but it's a rhododendron. This is a plant which is nearly 10 years now, and you see the structure of the substrate and the right roots growing over there. Also aeration around the container, not filled. So the plant is always bigger as the container is. So here we have a plant which is 12 to 15 years old. So in the next step over there, and you see it's more dry. We cultivate them more dry from autumn on, so from September up to March, because our daylight is getting low, then it's too dark, and that's why we cultivate them more dry to tell the plant, hey, stop growing, get dormant, produce flower buds. And that's very easy with Vireyas. If you cultivate them more dry, not completely dry, they produce plenty of flower buds. But if you fertilize and keep them moderate moist during the growing season, you have more new growth as flower buds. But it's very important to water them heavily from end of March, early April to September, because if you have 34 degrees or more in the greenhouse, they need plenty of water and don't get stressed. So next size, and that's the problem here. Over here you see all the holes over there, and that's a problem with the holes. You always have moist places in the substrate and also dry places, and that is a difficult thing during the culture, to get a complete moderate moisture within the substrate. And you always see here the white thin roots. So now we saw the containers, and now we see it compared with the plants. So it takes a lot of years to get big plants which are ready for the botanical greenhouse to be planted in. So we start with this size for epiphytes and this size for planting in the greenhouse. So it takes up to 15 years to bring a plant in a special size into the public greenhouse so the visitor can see a new plant. So that's the problem with Vireyas, and they have a totally root grow, as I told you, compared to Himalayan rhododendrons or North American rhododendrons. If you see the fake roots over here, they have new growth over here. And so you don't have a fake root system because of the epiphyte behavior. So then you only need some roots which hold on the trunk, and that's it. And this plant was grown in the ground in the botanical greenhouse for 10 years. And you see the structure is totally different, and that's the problem if you want to transplant a Virea which was planted in the ground. You can't do that, because if you take them out with a spade, you will cut the new growth, and they don't regenerate from these thick roots. So you can hope that these thin roots will grow and let this plant survive, but most of the plants will die within 4 weeks. So there's no chance to transplant them. And that's why we cultivate most of the plants in the prop center in containers, so that we get a good root system. And if I bring a new plant into the botanical greenhouse, I sink them with the container in the ground, which it's more easier to remove. I lost several plants after transplanting, because they looked like this. So, the problem with substrates in Germany is the Green government decided to stop using peat in substrates in Germany, and they stop it from 2030 on. And that's why I decided to make a substrate experiment with Vireyas seedlings 4 years ago, to put them in mineral substrate and to look what will happen to these plants. Does it work? And how will they look like? How big they are? What are how does the substrate take the nutrients of a fertilizer? And I will show you now. So I used seeds and seedlings of hybrid seeds because they are much easier to handle, more vigor, and you get more plants within a short period if you sow a plant as from cuttings. And I decided to use hybrids because species are not so good if you lose them completely. And these are crosses of mine, and they were planted after 2 years from sowing in this mineral substrate. And the good thing with the mineral substrate is if you put it in this box, it holds the moisture, and they are growing very fast. The next problem is of the moisture, you get plenty of liver moss, and that's the worst case because the liver moss can overgrow little seedlings. And you see the first stage is very good. The green leaves, new growth, everything is okay. And after 2 years, I decided to pot them in these little 8 centimeter containers. And what will happen, you will see now. Not every Virea has the same good root system, but all are nearly have the same size and have good wide root growth. The pH is of 6.5. Our substrates normally have 4.5 up to 5. So this is very high, but you see wide new roots. So it works, but the most important thing is to keep this substrate always moderate moist up to wet, because if it's drying out, you will see they will get chlorosis. They get light in the leaves. They have problems to take the nutrients. And this is how the mineral substrate looks like. And this is how it looks like today. So you see chlorosis, nearly yellow ones, and I will do the opposite experiment and will plant them in winter in our substrate we normally use to see if these ones go back green, if it works, and we'll check the root growth they made within the last 2 years in the substrate. But you see there are also some green ones who like it, but there are also some who doesn't like it. And the interesting thing is, if they are growing in this substrate, they need up to 4 years for the first flower. That's very interesting. So if I cultivated in our normal substrate, it took up to 5 to 6 years for the first flower. I don't know why, because maybe it's of this high stress level of drying out, getting moist. So this chlorosis also happen with the Growtech fertilizer and the Osmocote fertilizer. So something is in this plant, so which is not working very well, because you also have these plants. So maybe it depends on the cross, or something else is going on in this plant. So I also produce some Virea hybrids, and I'm hybridizing since 1999 and produce nearly 183 hybrids since then, but don't worry, I don't have a lot of them. I only selected the best, and here I want to show you some of them. They don't have names because I never registered them. I just do it for my own, because of having fun playing bee, pollinating some areas where I think, oh yeah, this could be an interesting cross. And you see over here, this is a sibling of this one, and the color variation is very interesting sometimes, or looks more old-fashioned, and yeah, different colors. Um, yeah. So we have Bremen have nearly 90 species, 39 named hybrids, and nearly 30 not registered rhododendron hybrids. It's the biggest collection in Germany, and we're still looking for someone in Germany or other botanical gardens where we can give plants so that the collection gets not lost. And here's some more. These are the ones which flowered in the mineral substrate the last 4 months. And so this one is nearly looking good, but this one is looking better in the leaf color. Yeah, so still making hybrids. And this is the end of my talk. I want to thank the Foundation of Bremen Rhododendronpark and the Botanica GmbH for the permission that I can show you what we are doing here in Bremen. And I would like to thank you, Juliana, that I had the chance to show you all the things we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. That was so much fun. Um, we're open for questions, so raise your hand, type in the Q&A. Melissa, go ahead.
I was just wondering if you kept a log of growth rates of the different Vireyas species.
Again, please.
Do you keep a log of or like a record of the growth rates of the different Vireyas species?
No, we don't do that. It always depend on the species. So you have Taxifolium, which has a very small new growth rate, and Latum, which has a big new growth rate. So you always have to check in which sections they are. So the smaller species have a lower new growth rate as the bigger ones.
I have a question generally sort of following up from Melissa, which is in general, what is the access for research of this collection? It looks like an amazing collection that people would want to study. Yeah, so do you guys have research access? What
So
does that look like?
yeah, we have a very big collection, and that the problem is we are a foundation and we are doing it for our own, but also for showing the diversity of rhododendrons, because rhododendrons have yeah, how shall I say them? They are very common in Germany, but most people think, oh, it's flowering 2 weeks a year, nearly three. And then there's this boring looking plant because it's only green. And our profession is to show the visitor the diversity, like there's new interesting growth. Look at the flowers, they're totally different. You have slow growing, you have tree growing, you have the middle of that, you have azaleas, deciduous azaleas. So our profession is to show the visitor the diversity so that they understand there's something else. This is boring rhododendron Cunningham's white, which is only 2 weeks flowering. And if you show them, they understand what we are doing. So keeping the diversity, because there are a lot of collections got lost during the last two world wars, and our profession is to keep this collection alive. So Bremen Rhododendron Park was founded in 1935, so it's nearly 100 years old, And
Ah.
the German Rhododendron Society was founded in 1936 in Bremen. So it's also um, the location of the German Rhododendron Society. That's why we have a special profession to show rhododendrons. And yeah, and the new thing is how to keep rhododendrons alive during the climate change we have in our garden, because we get more continental heat during the summer months. So the mild summers with plenty of rain are gone. If we get rain, we get plenty rain within some hours or 2 days or something like that. And that's a big problem to keep the collection alive. And that's why I was telling you about the moderate moisture.
Mhm.
Um, we have to keep the stress level of the plants very low, but it's a hard work, a hard effort to do that. If you have, we had it in 18, I think, from end of March to September, with temperatures a day about 30 degrees, night temperatures about 20 degrees, and no rain. And the colleagues were watering from day to day. And if you
Yeah.
don't do it, you get a high stress level with fungus like Phytophthora, or you get the Andromeda lacebark, or cicads, or mealybugs, thrips, everything. And this is our profession, to keep this stress level very, very low. And we're doing a good job, I think, to keep it very low.
So all of the things you're talking about have been issues at our botanical garden that face our rhododendron collections too. Hot summers. And when you're working with a slow growing, long-lived plant, I think the thing that I really like about what you're pointing out is the the human capital, 100 years of people it takes to make a botanic garden. And our botanic garden is approaching 100 years old also. And the time investment that it takes to create these collections, going from those little bitty pots slowly up to was that a laundry basket?
Not really. There was a potato
Yeah.
for potatoes.
I have one question those were my science questions. I have a person who grows a Virea question. So I got a Virea at a meeting, I got it sort of offhanded because I don't know, I just couldn't stop myself. And I didn't actually expect it to grow because I live in the Northeast and we have to run the heater in the winter, and the winter can be very dry. But I have a plant room with a lot of plants, and it's humid in there in the winter, and I keep it closed. So my Virea is actually growing to my surprise, and it blooms quite a bit. But it looks very lanky, and I've often thought about whether I should A, prune it, or B, send it off to be done as cuttings. And what you're saying in your video is that maybe since it's an older plant, maybe I shouldn't prune it and I'm stuck with the lanky, weird shape that I currently have. What do you think?
Um, I made the experience. It's like the same in the garden. If you prune an old rhododendron, it could happen that they make new growth, but it also could happen that it doesn't grow. So if the stem is getting more thicker, the bud, sleeping bud, is more covered and it has more problems to grow outside. So if you prune and pinch during a young age, you don't have a problem. But you have to think for your own. Do you want to have well compact, round, bushy plant with 200 flower buds? Or do you want to have the natural look, like leggy, 2 meters high, only 3 stems with 4 leaves?
That's what I got. So what you're telling me is what I have is a really nice natural Virea.
Yeah, but if you look in nature, if you see pictures from nature, there's no one pruning them. So
Yeah.
um, this,
Well, and my problem is I can't take a good photograph of it. and it's a beautiful plant, but it won't photograph. So it's not me. You're telling me the plant, they just don't photograph well, and I have a very nice natural plant, and I should just be happy with that.
Yeah. And if they are small plants, you can pinch, you can prune, they do everything. But if they're getting bigger, just let them grow
Yeah,
because they are Vireyas, not Yakushimanum hybrids.
right. I'm gonna be happy with it. It's a beautiful little plant, so I'm gonna be
Yeah,
happy with it.
that's the most important thing.
Yeah. And it, you know what I love about it? So we did an interview once with someone who grows a lot of Vireyas, had transitioned from, sort of the old fashioned, lepidotes and elepidotes. And he said the best thing about them is they bloom anytime. And that's
Yeah.
what you were highlighting. And that is one thing. And I haven't done the cycle of making it dry in the winter. I'm definitely going to try that. So,
That's why we have the botanical greenhouse, because we have the Himalayan, where you start flowering from late January, early February to May, June.
mhm.
And then we have the Viraya greenhouse, where they're flowering 12 months. So, and if the visitor is going through the greenhouse, they can't believe that these are rhododendrons flowering in summer or in winter. But if you tell them, oh, you have to smell it, it has a great fragrance, it's a rhododendron, look in the trees, and then they understand, and then you start to look in the trees, in the tree ferns, and then they see the rhododendrons growing as epiphytes. But you always have to push them in the right way to show them, hey, you have to look over there, you have to look over there. And this is the main work of a botanical collection like a botanical garden or the Rhododendron Park Bremen.
Yeah. Well, I think this is such a great ending to what was an amazing convention, because what we've done is we've come all the way back around to the Botanic Gardens. In a lot of way are the heart of what I'm trying to cultivate with this network and this type of conference, is this idea that we're all working together on different elements. I'm a scientist, so I actually had to learn how to grow plants during my research so they wouldn't die. But I will never succeed without the great Botanic Garden people like you, who are basically delving into how to make these plants just thrive and be beautiful. So I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your bringing this perspective to the conference. It looks like we don't have any more questions. So I'm just gonna say the talks, if you didn't see yesterday's talks, I'm gonna put in the chat. We're gonna have almost everything up on YouTube, starting on June 1st. Go back and watch. The talks have been great. I'm gonna be rewatching this so I can make sure to get my Viraya growth right. And then if you're on Blue Sky, check out the Blue Sky profile that we have. It's a new account and it's just starting to grow, but Martin, that is a place where we're getting a lot of people who want to talk about rhododendrons just, for enjoyment. And one of the interesting things on that account is, I think you probably know, rhododendrons are getting kind of a bad rap in the UK, and everybody's super angry about them.
Yeah, maybe they're getting invasive.
Yeah, so, but then there's the Vireyas. They're not going to be invasive. We could safely enjoy Vireyas in the UK and in Europe. So I'd love to see you on Blue Sky, Martin, and maybe we can team up and help educate people about the diversity of rhododendron and show them this other side of rhododendron that's not invasive and that it's still beautiful. And so,
Yeah, but there are also some rhododendrons who tolerate heat and drought. So this is a new step for rhododendron breeders.
it is. It is.
So the
Well,
future is wide
ponticum should be
open.
in the breeding stock, shouldn't it?
Yeah, so
Don't tell anybody in the UK that, because they're very angry at that
I
plant.
know, so but rhododendron won't die because they have a wide range of diversity from high altitudes, low altitudes. So maybe we will found the perfect rhododendron for our gardens in 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Awesome. All right. I'm gonna say goodbye. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks, Martin. Great talk.
Thanks. Bye.
We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.